What's up, guys? It's Rob here, and we need to talk about support.com, ticker symbol SPRT, and the merger that's about to happen between them and Greenidge Generation Holdings, ticker symbol soon to be GREE for both of those stocks. So let's take a look at the chart. And this is actually the last time that we're really going to be able to look at this chart because at the end of today, around 4, I believe, this stock is going to cease to exist. SPRT is no longer going to be a stock that you can search and see the chart for. It's going to turn into GREE, and that's what you're going to have to do if you want to look at some of the past action. I don't actually know if you'll be able to see any of the past price action that SPRT has gone through, or if they're just going to start a whole new chart entirely. We'll really have to see with that, and that's going to be very interesting. So it's almost sad because I know that we on this channel have looked at this chart many times and analyzed it, and so it's kind of sad to see that this is probably the last time that we'll actually be able to look at it. But what you can see is going on today is we're down about 18.9%, and this is likely on the merger news, right? The research that I've done has not been the best in terms of hopes for a short squeeze, right? Now, I'm going to get into that in a minute, but first of all, let's just take a quick look at SPRT and see what's been going on, just for anyone who's new to the channel. First of all, you can see this is obviously a short squeeze play. We pumped up, we were around 581, pumped more than 10x this stock price, and have since been sinking and sinking, and there has actually been a bit of a rally in the recent past on the hopes of this merger. However, that has kind of faded away based off of some of this research that I'm about to reveal to you guys. I haven't actually talked about this merger on the channel before. I've mostly been covering it as a short squeeze because there was real potential that this thing would be getting squeezed before the merger. However, it looks like that's not the case. The merger is about to go through, and we still haven't really gotten that squeeze that we were looking for yet. So let's take a look at what I have on the merger, some merger information. So support.com, SPRT is going to merger with Greenidge Corporation, Greenidge Holding, ticker symbol GREE, right? That's what you're going to have to look for if you want this stock. And if you already own shares of this stock, if you already own shares of SPRT, you are now going to own shares of GREE at the end of the day. So just a brief overview of the fundamentals. SPRT does customer and technical support, and GREE is a Bitcoin mining and power generation companies. Now, I know that a lot of people don't really care about that. They care about the short squeeze and the potential. So let's talk about that. So what's going to happen with this merger is each share of SPRT is going to become worth 0.115 shares of GREE. And that means that for every 8.7 about shares that you have, you're going to get 1 share of GREE. Now, this means that if the stock price, in order to keep your capital allocation the same, if the stock price is $15 at the end of the day, then when the stock turns into GREE, you should have a stock, you should have originally had 8.7 shares, and then you will have 1 share that's worth $130.50 just about. So this applies to related investments, and this is what a lot of you guys were asking about in the comments, and I did some research, and I believe I have an answer for you guys. So this applies to related investments as well, meaning options and shorts. So first of all, if you look at the options, these options are likely going to become much more expensive and far less numerous. So these are basically going to undergo the same conversion, I believe, that the shares will go through, that you'll have far fewer options than you currently do, but you'll also have much more expensive options. So I believe those will undergo similar price changes. It's potentially not going to work that way. Potentially you'll actually have just cheaper options and keep the same amount of them. But the prices may stay more similar than you would think, right? They'll just adjust the strike prices. So that's another potentiality. I believe I've held options through this kind of a thing before, and if I remember correctly, I do think that they actually ended up getting closed out. I'm not too sure on that, but I'm pretty sure your options will be closed out if you don't have enough. There was a stipulation in this agreement, right, that if they're going to give you fractional shares, that they may actually pay you in cash, right? So if you don't have enough shares of GREE, if you don't have enough options contracts, I believe those may be closed out at the end of the day. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% certain. But what I am almost certain on, what I have a 99% certainty of, is that short shares will not be forced to close. And I know that's a lot of disappointing information to hear all at once. Short shares are probably not going to have to close on this merger, right? Shorts are probably just going to go under the same conversion that the normal shares go under, right? So if you have 8.7 shares worth of short position, that's just going to turn into 1 share of short position for this new stock. So that's kind of disappointing, right? If you look, you'll see that we have a very high short interest currently, 97.69, incredibly high, and a lot of people were really hoping that this thing would squeeze hopefully before the merger, and a lot of people were actually thinking that this would force a closure of these short positions, that the merger would force a closure of the short positions, and that's almost certainly not how this is going to work. Now, you can tell based off of the fact that, one, these shares are going to be going under a very easy conversion, really, right? 0.115 shares per per share that you have. You're going to get 0.115 shares, and it would be very easy to convert that also for short shares. So also, the second reason why you're almost certainly not going to see these shorts get closed is because people are still shorting, and the people shorting are oftentimes much more advanced. They've been involved in the markets for a lot longer, and they're institutions. And while they are, obviously not risk averse, right? This is a very risky thing to do to have a short interest this high. They probably know that these positions are not going to be forced to close, especially if we're seeing the short interest change, because they know that if 97% of this float is being shorted and that's all forced to close in a single moment, right, when this thing actually turns into GREE, that would cause a massive, just like an unbelievable shoot up in stock price. So obviously these institutions kind of know what they're doing, right? They might not be making the best decision, but they're not going to do something where they just throw away all of their money and end up getting squeezed into oblivion. So I really don't think that this is going to force a closure of these shares. Now, I couldn't find anything that was 100% definitive on that on the internet. I really looked for quite a bit, but what I have found is that obviously the shares are being converted, and it makes sense that the short positions would be converted as well. And obviously, if the institutions aren't closing their short positions right now because they don't want to be squeezed into oblivion, then it makes sense that this thing isn't going to force a closure of all the short positions. I don't believe that all the shorts are just going to disappear all at once, and that's very disappointing to hear for a lot of people. But this merger does present some upsides as well as downsides, right? Let's talk about the downsides first. So first of all, obviously, there's going to be a larger market cap, and that will mean a lower short interest percentage of the free float. So on Ortex, when we look at GREE probably tomorrow, we'll see that the short interest is probably going to be much lower because the market cap has increased. However, the current short interest share-wise, right, 9.1 million shares, may actually go up. And this is because I think that shorts are probably going to get greedy, right? They might be a little bit fearful of the currently very high short interest percent of free float and might not be shorting as much as they really want to in order to push this thing down, because obviously there is a lot of buying pressure for this stock. You can see that even though it has been going down over the past, we've still been going down on somewhat large volume, millions, tens of millions of shares traded on all of these days. And obviously there are a lot of buyers of the stock because they believe in the squeeze. Now, shorts, on the other hand, have been shorting because they want to push this thing down, and it's actually been relatively hard for them, though it has been moving down significant percentages every day. It's probably not as low as they want it, because eventually, in order to make a profit on this, they're going to have to end up closing those short positions. And they don't want to do that all at once. They want this thing to be much cheaper. A lot of shorts are probably shorting before this massive pump up in price. And, around here, they don't want to just break even. They want a big profit. So it's been very difficult for them, as you can see, to actually push this thing all the way down as far as they would like. Now, that means that shorts are most likely, in my opinion, going to continue shorting this thing and be shorting more of it, especially after the merger goes through and this short interest percent of free float changes. Now, that could actually be a good thing because the market cap of SPRT was relatively low, and that made it kind of difficult for a short squeeze to go through, because on the last, I'll just show you, we have a short interest of 9.1 million shares, right? And if you multiply that by the stock price, which was $20, you had $180 million worth of short positions out there. Now it's a bit less. Now it's probably $130 million. So $130 million isn't a ton to institutions. And if they wanted to cover those positions, they could do it relatively cheaply. And overall, I believe that it was unlikely for a squeeze to happen, as I talked about in my other videos, without massive upwards pressure, right? Because they have no incentive to just close out their positions willy-nilly, right? They're expecting to make a profit on this and to continue pushing this thing down. They don't want to just close out their positions randomly. They want to be margin called. Well, they don't want to be margin called, but if they're going to close out their positions, it's probably going to be due to a margin call or something like that. Maybe the thing just shoots up way too much and they're getting too scared. They don't actually want a margin call. They might close out right before that point. But the point remains that this market cap was very low, and it was very difficult to actually see short squeeze on it, because the amount of money the institutions had tied up just wasn't great enough to really be a threat to them. Now, once this thing turns into GREE, we are going to be looking at a much higher stock price and obviously a much higher market cap, since this will be the combination of two companies. So that would actually lead to, if shorts continued to short and got up a short percentage as high as this on GREE, it wouldn't even have to be this high to be very threatening to them. Then there's a real possibility, because there'd be enough shorted shares multiplied by the price, that they could actually be squeezed out due to margin calls, right? If this thing starts moving up. Obviously, in order to get a squeeze, you have to start squeezing, which means moving the price up. So something will have to happen to get this thing moving. And, there are some potential catalysts that I'll talk about in other videos because this video is already much longer than my typical ones. And, that's really what I wanted to talk about, just the merger today. I don't want to get too far into what this new company is doing and some reasons why it could be going up. But that's what I have for you guys today on SPRT and the merger. If you enjoyed this video, then consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And if you would like to support the channel, something you can do is use the Webull referral link in the description of the video. We'll both get free stocks. That's a great deal. You get paid to support the channel, basically. So that's what I have for you guys today. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.